If you saw a 25-year-old woman who'd never had a bank account, never driven a loan, never even chosen her own clothes, what would you think? Broken? Helpless? That's exactly what my parents counted on everyone thinking at my birthday party. They'd spent decades crafting the perfect illusion of a dependent daughter who needed their constant protection. The relatives nodded sympathetically when Mom explained, again, how I was too fragile for the real world. But as I stood there in the dress they'd chosen, surrounded by the guests they'd invited, eating the cake they'd ordered, I knew something they didn't. In my backpack sat 10 years of patience, $36,500 in carefully hidden cash, and a one-way ticket to freedom. My name is Penny Irving, and if you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. This is the story of how I escaped my parents' prison without them ever seeing it coming. Every morning at 7 a.m. sharp, my bedroom door would open. Not knock and open, just open. Mom would stand there with that same practiced smile, holding a cup of herbal tea she'd chosen for me. "Good morning, sunshine," she'd say, as if I was still 5 years old instead of 25. The clothes for the day were already laid out on my chair, always modest, always in colors Mom deemed appropriate. Today's selection: a beige cardigan over a floral dress that made me look like I'd raided a retirement home's lost and found. I'd learned long ago not to argue. The one time I'd bought a red blouse with my weekly allowance, Mom had cried for 3 hours about how I was turning rebellious and breaking her heart. My daily schedule was printed and laminated, stuck to the wall with butterfly tape. 8 a.m. Breakfast with family. 9 a.m. Online work, monitored. 12 p.m. Lunch with Mom. Every minute accounted for, every activity supervised. The laptop on my desk had more parental controls than a kindergarten computer lab. My phone, if you could call it that, had no SIM card, only Wi-Fi access that ran through Dad's network with every site filtered and logged. Social media? Blocked? Dating apps? You don't need those, sweetheart. When the time is right, we'll find you a nice boy from church. Even my bedroom window had a special lock installed for safety. Because apparently, suburban Connecticut was so dangerous that a grown woman couldn't open her own window without supervision. The strangest part? I'd accepted this for so long that it felt normal. At least that's what I let them believe. My job was the perfect prison within a prison. Dad had arranged it, of course, remote bookkeeping for his friend's accounting firm. "You're so lucky," Mom would remind me daily. "Working from home, no commute, no office drama. We've given you the perfect life." Every 2 weeks, my $1,800 paycheck would deposit directly into my parents' account. They'd show me the bank statements, pointing to the growing number in my savings account that I couldn't access. "Look how well we're managing your future," Dad would say proudly. "By the time you're married, you'll have such a nice nest egg." My weekly allowance was $20 cash, handed over every Sunday after church like I was a child getting lunch money. Mom would count it out slowly. 5, 10, 15, 20. That should be more than enough for your needs. What needs? I wasn't allowed to go anywhere alone. Every purchase required a receipt. A coffee from the church cafe? Receipt. A notebook from the dollar store during our supervised shopping trips? Receipt. Mom kept them all in a folder labeled Penny's Expenses, like she was running some kind of forensic accounting investigation on my life. The work itself was mind-numbing, but I was good at it. Really good. My supervisor, Miss Martinez, once emailed asking if I'd like to attend a conference in Boston. Dad replied from my email account, "Thank you for the opportunity, but Penny is unable to travel due to health concerns." Health concerns. That was their favorite excuse. Anxiety, they'd tell people. Fragile constitution. Needs routine and stability. The truth was, I'd never been sick a day in my adult life. But sick was easier to explain than "we keep our daughter prisoner." Friends were a luxury I couldn't afford, literally and figuratively. The few I'd had during homeschooling had gradually disappeared, confused by the endless excuses. "Penny can't come to your wedding, she's not feeling well." "Penny won't make it to the reunion, family obligations." The mailbox might as well have been in another country. Dad collected the mail daily, sorting through it at the kitchen table while I watched from across the room. Birthday cards from distant relatives were opened, read aloud, and filed away. "Aunt Jennifer sent you $20, Mom would announce, tucking the bill into her wallet. "I'll add it to your savings." Phone calls were a performance art. The landline had no privacy. Mom had removed all the other handsets except the one in the kitchen. If someone called for me, she'd hover nearby, pretending to wash dishes that were already clean. "Keep it short, Penny. You know how talking too long exhausts you." The neighbors had stopped trying years ago. Mrs. Henderson next door would wave from her garden, her eyes full of questions she never asked. Once, she'd invited me for tea while Mom was at her book club. "I'm not allowed," I'd said simply. She'd never asked again, but sometimes I caught her watching our house with a worried expression. Dating was so far off the table it wasn't even in the same room. The one time a boy from church had shown interest, Dad had taken him aside for a man-to-man talk. The boy never spoke to me again. "He wasn't right for you," Mom had said, patting my hand. "When God wants you to have a husband, he'll send the perfect one." The perfect one, apparently, would have to get past the fortress they'd built around me first. The grocery store changed everything. It was 10 years ago. I was 15, and Mom had the flu. Dad was at work, and we needed milk. For the first time in my memory, Mom handed me cash and let me walk to the corner store alone. "Get milk and come straight back," she'd said weakly from the couch. 20 minutes maximum. Those 20 minutes of freedom hit me like a drug. The cashier gave me change from the $20 bill, 13.50 soles. I stood there, staring at the money in my hand, and made a decision that would change my life. I pocketed $10 and bought a pack of gum to make the change look smaller. "Where's the receipt?" Mom asked when I got home. My heart hammered as I handed it over. She barely glanced at it, too sick to do her usual forensic analysis. "Good girl, put the change on the counter." $3 and change clinked onto the counter. She never asked about the rest. That night, I lay awake planning. If I could take $10 here and there from grocery money, claim prices had gone up, keep the difference. The math was intoxicating. $10 a week would be $520 a year. 5,200 in 10 years. If I could manage more. I found the perfect hiding spot by accident. An old tampon box in the back of my closet. Dad would never look there, and Mom hadn't checked my closet in years, trusting that I kept it organized like she'd taught me. The first $100 took 2 months to save. I wrapped it in tissue paper, my hands shaking with fear and excitement. This wasn't just money. This was possibility. This was hope. This was my secret rebellion, one $10 bill at a time. Understanding your captors doesn't make the cage any less real, but their stories explain the lock on my life, even if they didn't excuse it. Mom's childhood was a masterclass in abandonment. Her parents had divorced when she was 7, and she'd ping-ponged between houses until neither wanted her anymore. By 15, she was living with an aunt who barely remembered to feed her. I promised myself, she'd tell me while brushing my hair, my daughter would never feel unwanted, never feel unsafe, never feel alone. She'd kept that promise with a vengeance. Dad's story was simpler, but no less scarring. He'd trusted a business partner in his 20s, signed papers without reading them, and lost everything. The man had been his best friend since childhood. "Trust is a luxury we can't afford," he'd say, reviewing my receipts. "The world is full of people waiting to take advantage, but family protects each other." Their marriage was built on this shared fortress mentality. They'd found each other at a support group for people who'd been betrayed, and their love grew from mutual paranoia. Together, they'd created a world where nothing could hurt them, or me, ever again. "We're not like other families," Mom would say proudly. "We don't let the world corrupt us, we keep each other safe." Safe. That word had become my cage. Safe from friends who might betray me. Safe from boys who might hurt me. Safe from experiences that might change me. safe from any life at all. They genuinely believed they were giving me a gift. Every locked door, every monitored conversation, every controlled dollar, all of it wrapped in love and tied with fear. The perfect prison is the one where the guards think they're saviors. 3 months before my 25th birthday, Mom made the announcement that would seal their fate. "We're throwing you a proper birthday party," she declared over breakfast. 25 is a milestone. We'll invite everyone, family, neighbors, Dad's colleagues. Show them what a wonderful young woman you've become. Dad nodded enthusiastically. "About 30 people. We'll have it catered. Spare no expense for our princess." I kept my face carefully neutral, but inside my mind was racing. 30 witnesses. All those people who'd been told for years about my anxiety, my fragility, my need for protection. They'd all be there to see the truth. "That sounds nice," I said, spreading butter on my toast with steady hands. "Can I help plan it?" Mom laughed. "Oh, sweetie, you know planning stresses you out. We'll handle everything. You just show up and be your sweet self." That night, I sat in my room with my hidden calculator, running numbers. My secret savings had grown to $34,000. By my birthday, I'd have over $36,000. Enough for a plane ticket, a few months' rent somewhere, time to find a real job, time to breathe. The party would be my stage. They wanted to show off their perfect, dependent daughter. I'd give them a show they'd never forget. But it would need to be flawless. One chance, no rehearsal, no room for error. I started my real planning that night. Passport. I'd convinced them I needed one for work documentation 2 years ago. Bank account. I'd figure that out. Plane ticket. Could buy it online the day of. Luggage. My old backpack would have to do. They wanted a party to remember. I'd make sure nobody would ever forget it. Have you ever felt trapped by people who claim to love you? Sometimes the hardest prisons to escape are the ones built with good intentions. If this story resonates with you, please hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. Remember, recognizing control disguised as care is the first step to freedom. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about setting boundaries and reclaiming your power. Now let me tell you how my plan unfolded. 10 years of grocery shopping had turned me into a criminal mastermind in mom jeans. Every Tuesday and Friday, Mom would hand me her list and exactly calculated cash. "Tomatoes are $3.99 a pound at Sherman's," she'd say, as if I hadn't been buying them for a decade. But tomatoes were actually $2.99. Milk was $3.50, not $4.50. The organic eggs she insisted on? I bought regular and transferred them to the organic carton in the parking lot. Every trip netted me between $10 and $20, depending on how paranoid Mom was feeling that week. The tampon box grew too small by year 3. I upgraded to a metal cash box I'd bought at a garage sale, telling Mom it was for organizing my hair ties. I buried it in the backyard under the rosebush Dad had planted for my 16th birthday. Poetic justice, really. By year 5, I'd saved $20,000. The weight of it terrified and thrilled me. Sometimes I'd sneak out at night just to touch the box, to confirm it was real. My hands would shake as I counted, recounted, added the new bills. The close calls were heart-stopping. Once, Mom decided to deep clean my closet. I distracted her by accidentally spilling coffee on Dad's tax documents. The resulting panic bought me enough time to move the money. Another time, Dad decided to redo the garden. I convinced him the roses were emotionally significant and shouldn't be moved. But the smartest thing I ever did was start keeping fake receipts. I'd collect them from trash cans at the store, adjust them with careful pen strokes. A 2 became an 8. A 1 became a 4. My forgery skills would have impressed a con artist. 22,000, 28,000, 34,000. Freedom, counted in stolen bills. The internet became my secret university, studied in careful increments between Mom's check-ins. Incognito mode was my best friend, Though I had to clear it obsessively, Dad did spot checks on the browser history. I learned about banking through YouTube videos watched on mute with subtitles, how to open an account online, what documents you needed, how to use an ATM. Things every teenager knew, but I was discovering at 23 like an anthropologist studying foreign customs. The public library became my excuse. I want to read more classics, I told Mom, showing her a Jane Austen novel. She was thrilled. Wholesome literature, supervised environment. What she didn't know was that the library had computers with unrestricted internet, 30-minute sessions, but enough to research apartments, jobs, visa requirements. I hid self-help books inside cookbook covers. The joy of cooking actually contained boundaries, when to say yes, how to say no. Betty Crocker's Basics held financial freedom for beginners. I read them in the bathroom, the only place I had privacy. Driving was the hardest skill to acquire, but Mrs. Henderson's nephew, Tyler, worked at the DMV. One day, while Mom was at her doctor's appointment, Mrs. Henderson accidentally mentioned Tyler could do private lessons. "Off the books," she said quietly. "I've seen you watching the cars go by, dear." 6 secret lessons in Mrs. Henderson's old Honda, always when Mom had her monthly church committee meetings. Tyler was patient, never asked questions. The day I passed my driving test, Mom thought I was at the library. I cried in the DMV bathroom. The license felt heavier than gold in my hands. Every skill was a key to a lock I'd been picking for years. And they never suspected their obedient daughter was becoming someone they wouldn't recognize. Aunt Sarah arrived for her annual visit 2 months before my birthday, and something about her was different, sharper, more observant. She watched me the way you'd watch a caged bird, looking for signs of broken wings. "Penny looks thin," she announced at dinner, though I hadn't lost weight. "And pale. When's the last time she went out with friends?" Mom's fork paused midway to her mouth. "Penny prefers home, don't you, sweetheart?" I nodded on cue, but Aunt Sarah's eyes stayed on mine a beat too long. The next morning, she cornered me while Mom was in the shower. "You're 25 in a few months," she said, not a question. "What are your plans?" "I don't—" "Every young person has plans," she interrupted. "Dreams, goals, unless someone's taken those away." My heart hammered. Did she know? How could she know? Mom appeared in the doorway like a guard dog sensing danger. "Sarah, you're filling Penny's head with nonsense. She's happy here, aren't you, Penny?" "Of course," I said, but Aunt Sarah had already pressed something into my hand, her business card. Later, I studied it in the bathroom. On the back, in tiny handwriting, "If you ever need anything, call me." A phone number I didn't recognize was written below. Not her usual one. I hid the card in my tampon box with the money. It felt like holding dynamite. At dinner, Aunt Sarah kept pushing. 25 is a perfect age to travel. See the world. Maybe Penny could visit me in Chicago?" "Penny doesn't travel well," Dad said firmly. "You know about her anxiety." "Funny," Aunt Sarah said, sipping her wine. "She doesn't look anxious to me. She looks trapped." The silence that followed could have choked someone. Aunt Sarah's visit triggered a security crackdown that would have impressed a maximum security prison. The day after she left, Dad installed cameras. "For our safety," he said, drilling holes in the hallway ceiling. "Sarah's been putting ideas in your head," Mom said, watching me fold laundry. "I could see it in your eyes, that restlessness. That's not you, sweetheart. That's her influence." The cameras blinked red in every common area. My bedroom was the only blind spot, and even that felt temporary. Dad started checking browser history twice daily instead of weekly. Mom reduced my grocery trips to once a week and started coming with me every other time. "We're just worried," she explained, holding my hand too tight in the cereal aisle. "The world is getting more dangerous. Those news stories about young women disappearing. We couldn't bear to lose you." My phone lost even its Wi-Fi privileges after Dad found I'd accessed a travel website. "Accidentally clicked an ad," I explained. but the damage was done. The laptop moved to the kitchen, facing outward so they could see the screen from anywhere in the room. The worst part was the new schedule. Mom started sitting in my room during my work hours, keeping me company with her knitting. Every click was monitored, every email scrutinized. "From now on, we'll do grocery shopping together," Dad announced at dinner. "Family bonding time." My income source was being cut off. Panic clawed at my throat, but I kept my face neutral. "That sounds nice," I said, cutting my chicken into precise squares. That night, I counted my savings one more time. $34,500. It would have to be enough. The walls were closing in, and my birthday was still 6 weeks away. I just had to survive 6 more weeks. Desperate times called for desperate measures. With grocery money cut off, I had to get creative. The solution came from an unexpected source: online surveys and cashback apps. During my monitored work hours, I'd have multiple browser tabs open. While Mom knitted beside me, thinking I was doing spreadsheets, I was actually completing paid surveys in a minimized window: $3 here, $5 there. The payments went to a PayPal account I'd created with Mrs. Henderson's address. Mrs. Henderson had become my silent accomplice. One day, while Mom was at her book club, she'd knocked on our door. "I have some packages that were misdelivered," she'd said loudly, then whispered, "Check your old hiding spot." Under the rosebush, I found a prepaid debit card she'd bought and a note: "Loaded online, no paper trail." The cashback apps were genius. Every online purchase Mom made through my computer: household supplies, Dad's vitamins, her craft supplies, I filtered through cashback sites first. 2% here, 5% there, all funneling into my secret PayPal. Mom never knew that her obsessive online shopping was funding my escape. I also started selling my skills. Through a freelance site, I offered rush bookkeeping services after my official work hours. Mom thought I was doing practice exercises to improve my skills. "Such a dedicated worker," she'd tell Dad proudly, while I was actually earning $50 fixing someone's QuickBooks disaster. The riskiest move was selling things: old jewelry from my childhood, books I'd donated to charity, clothes that didn't fit anymore. I photographed them during bathroom breaks, listed them online, and had Mrs. Henderson ship them. Every dollar counted. By 3 weeks before my birthday, I'd scraped together another $2,000, $36,500 total. Enough for freedom, if I was careful, if I was brave. The birthday party preparations consumed my parents like wedding planning. Mom ordered invitations with my baby photo, celebrating 25 years of our precious penny in gold script. The irony wasn't lost on me. "We've invited 32 people," Dad announced, reviewing his spreadsheet. "Family, neighbors, my colleagues, Mom's book club, everyone who matters. Everyone who'd witness what came next." Mom dragged me to pick out a dress, though pick out meant watching her choose between two equally infantilizing options. She selected a pink monstrosity with ruffles and a Peter Pan collar. "You'll look like an angel," she cooed. They made me practice a speech. "I want to thank my parents for 25 years of love and protection," I recited while Mom recorded on her phone. "Without them, I'd be lost in this scary world." Meanwhile, I was finalizing my real plans. The plane ticket to Paris, purchased during a bathroom break using Mrs. Henderson's Wi-Fi from my phone. Departure, 8 p.m. on my birthday. The party was at 2 p.m. Plenty of time. I'd withdrawn my money in increments from various ATMs during my secret driving lessons with Tyler. The cash was packed in a hidden compartment of my old backpack, along with my passport and a change of clothes. The email to my parents, scheduled to send at 7 p.m. after I'd be through security. Not cruel, just honest. Explaining that love shouldn't feel like prison, that protection shouldn't mean suffocation. "You seem nervous about the party," Mom noticed, finding me staring out my window. "Just excited," I lied, watching a plane trace across the sky. "Don't worry," she said, kissing my forehead. "We'll be right there with you. We always are." Not for much longer, I thought. Not for much longer. Sleep was impossible. I lay in bed, fully dressed under my covers, listening to the house settle into its familiar nighttime rhythm. Dad's snoring from down the hall, Mom's white noise machine, the grandfather clock chiming every hour, counting down to freedom. At 2 a.m., I crept to my desk and read the letter I'd written one more time. Dear Mom and Dad, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Not because I don't love you, but because I do. Love shouldn't feel like drowning. Protection shouldn't feel like prison. You taught me to be careful, to plan, to save. I learned those lessons well, maybe too well. I know you're afraid of the world because it hurt you, but you can't heal your wounds by inflicting new ones on me. I forgive you. I hope someday you can forgive me too. Your daughter, not your prisoner, Penny. I sealed it, wrote their names on the envelope. It would stay in my desk drawer. They'd find it eventually. My backpack was ready, hidden behind my winter coats. Passport, money, ticket confirmation on my phone, Mrs. Henderson's emergency contact, Aunt Sarah's secret number, everything I needed to start over. I thought about tomorrow's party. Mom's face when I stood up to speak. Dad's expression when he realized their careful control had created not dependence, but determination. The guests' reactions when the truth came out. Part of me felt guilty. They'd be humiliated, heartbroken. But I thought about Mrs. Henderson's words from earlier that week. Honey, setting yourself on fire to keep others warm isn't love. It's sacrifice, and you've sacrificed enough. The clock chimed 4 a.m. In 10 hours, the party would start. In 6 hours, I'd begin my last day as their prisoner. The party unfolded like a perfectly choreographed play. Mom had outdone herself. Pink balloons everywhere, a 3-tiered cake, catered finger foods that cost more than most people's rent. I stood in my ridiculous pink dress, greeting guests like a wind-up doll. Penny looks wonderful, Dad's colleague remarked. You must be so proud. She's our whole world, Mom replied, arm locked through mine. We don't know what we'd do without her. You're about to find out, I thought, smiling sweetly. Aunt Sarah arrived fashionably late, her eyes immediately finding mine. She took in the dress, the hovering parents, the way I stood like a mannequin, and her jaw tightened. When she hugged me, she whispered, Whatever you're planning, I'm here. My backpack sat innocuously by the coat closet, looking like any other guest's bag. Inside, my entire future. Mrs. Henderson brought her famous potato salad and a card. For the birthday girl, she said loudly, then softer. You've got this, dear. As guests mingled, Mom pulled me from group to group. Penny's never been on a plane, she told her book club. Can you imagine? She's such a homebody. Penny doesn't drive, Dad informed his colleagues. No need when we take her everywhere. She's thinking about marriage soon, Mom lied to the relatives. We've been talking to Pastor Brown about introducing her to his nephew. Each lie stacked like kindling. Soon, I'd light the match. Speech time, Dad announced, clinking his glass. The room quieted, 32 faces turning toward us. Mom beamed, video recording on her phone. Penny's prepared something special. I stood, my legs surprisingly steady, picked up my backpack, slung it over one shoulder. Mom's smile flickered, confused. Thank you all for coming, I began. I have something important to say. 25 years ago, my parents made a promise, I began, my voice carrying across the silent room. They promised to protect me from a world that had hurt them. They've kept that promise with incredible dedication. Mom nodded approvingly, still recording. Dad stood taller, proud. They taught me so many things. Patience, waiting for the right moment, observation, noticing every detail, planning, thinking 10 steps ahead. I paused, meeting Aunt Sarah's eyes. And most importantly, they taught me that sometimes love can become a cage. The room shifted uncomfortably. Mom's smile froze. For 25 years, I've never had a bank account, never driven alone, never chosen my own clothes, my own food, my own friends. My voice stayed calm, factual. My paychecks go to their account. My mail gets screened, my internet is monitored, cameras watch me in my own home. Penny, Dad warned, stepping forward. You're confused. Your anxiety. I don't have anxiety, Dad. You have anxiety about losing control. I pulled out my driver's license. I learned to drive in secret, passed my test 3 months ago. Gasps rippled through the room. Mom's phone shook in her hand. Every grocery trip for 10 years I saved money. $10 here, 20 there. Mom, remember when tomatoes cost $5 a pound? They were actually $3. The organic eggs you love? I bought regular. Her face went white. You stole from us? I saved my own money that you never let me access. I remained steady, factual. Money I earned but couldn't touch. Money that was mine. The relatives started murmuring. Mrs. Henderson stood straighter, chin raised. Aunt Sarah moved closer to me, protective. And today, I continued, I'm using that money to leave. You can't leave, Mom laughed, but it sounded hollow. You don't have any money. You don't have anywhere to go. I pulled out the bank statement from my backpack, held it up. $36,500. 10 years of saving, Mom. Every receipt you made me keep, I kept my own too. The paper shook as she grabbed it, eyes scanning the number over and over. This is fake. This has to be fake. It's real, Mrs. Henderson spoke up. I helped her open the account. A grown woman deserves access to her own money. You? Dad turned on her, face red. You had no right. She had every right, Aunt Sarah interrupted. You've kept this girl prisoner. We've all watched it happen, too polite to say anything. Well, I'm done being polite. Mom's legs gave out. She sank into a chair, still staring at the statement. But you can't. You don't know how to. You'll get hurt out there. Maybe, I admitted. But that's my choice to make. My risk to take. My life to live. I pulled out the plane ticket. My flight leaves at 8 p.m., Paris. I've always wanted to see the Eiffel Tower, but you said travel was too dangerous. Paris? Dad's voice cracked. You can't go to Paris alone. You don't speak French. You've never even been to the airport. Then I'll learn, like I learned everything else, in secret, in spite of you. The room had divided into camps. The younger relatives looked impressed. The older ones seemed scandalized. Mom's book club whispered among themselves. This is insane, someone said. This is overdue, Aunt Sarah countered. Mom looked up at me, tears streaming. We were protecting you. You were protecting yourselves, I said gently, from your own fears. You won't survive a week, Dad's voice turned cold. You can't even cook a proper meal. Then I'll eat sandwiches. You don't know how to navigate a city. Google Maps exists, Dad. What about your job? Your health insurance? I've already lined up remote work, real employers who'll pay me directly. As for insurance, I'll figure it out like millions of other people do. Mom stood up suddenly, desperate. What if something happens? What if you get sick, get robbed, get... She couldn't finish. Then I'll handle it. Like an adult, which is what I am, despite how you've tried to keep me a child. She rushed forward, grabbed my arms. Please, Penny, don't do this. Not like this, not in front of everyone. You chose the audience, Mom. You wanted everyone to see your perfect, dependent daughter. Well, here I am, independent, imperfect, real. If you walk out that door, Dad threatened, don't bother coming back. The room erupted. You can't say that, Aunt Sarah shouted. She's your daughter. A daughter doesn't betray her parents, he shot back. Parents don't imprison their children, Mrs. Henderson said quietly, but everyone heard. I pulled free from Mom's grip, shouldered my backpack properly. I'm not betraying you. I'm saving myself. And maybe, eventually, I'm saving you too, from the fear that's eating you alive. Pastor Brown cleared his throat. Perhaps we should all calm down. With respect, Pastor, I interrupted. I've been calm for 25 years. Today, I get to be free. Mom made one last attempt, pulling out her phone. Look, Look at all the missing persons cases, the dangers, the statistics. Mom, I said firmly. I'm not missing, I'm finding myself. This moment changed everything, not just for me, but for everyone watching. Sometimes the biggest act of love is refusing to be controlled by it. If you've ever had to choose between family harmony and personal freedom, you know how heavy this decision weighs. Please share your story in the comments below. Like this video if you believe everyone deserves the right to choose their own path. Let's continue. I pulled out my passport, held it up like a shield. My flight leaves in 3 hours. We won't drive you, Dad said flatly. I'll take her, Mrs. Henderson announced. I've been waiting to do something useful for this girl for 10 years. Me too, Aunt Sarah added. I'll follow in my car. Mom collapsed back into her chair, sobbing. You planned this, all of you. You turned our daughter against us. No, Margaret, Aunt Sarah said firmly. You turned your daughter into a prisoner. She turned herself into an escape artist. Tyler, Mrs. Henderson's nephew, raised his hand from the back. I taught her to drive, and she was the best student I ever had. Careful, thorough, determined. More voices joined in. Dad's colleague. Maybe it's time to let go. Mom's book club friend. 25 is old enough to make choices. The room had chosen sides, and for the first time in my life, more people stood with me than with them. Mom's theatrical faint was perfectly timed. She swayed, hand to forehead, and collapsed into Dad's arms. But I'd seen this performance before, the Christmas I'd asked to go to college, the time I'd wanted to join a book club, every moment I'd shown a spark of independence. Someone call 911, Dad shouted, though we all knew she was fine. She needs air, I said calmly. And water. She'll come around in about 30 seconds. She always does. Sure enough, Mom's eyes fluttered open right on schedule, finding the audience she'd expected. But instead of sympathy, she met skepticism. Margaret, stop it, Aunt Sarah said bluntly. This manipulation is exactly why Penny's leaving. The room erupted in arguments. Cousin Janet shouted about family values. Mrs. Thompson from Mom's book club argued about a parent's right to protect. Uncle Bill started lecturing about respect for elders. But the younger cousins were on their phones, some recording, others texting. This is insane, Cousin Amy said. Penny, good for you. You're all witnessing abuse, Aunt Sarah announced loudly. Financial abuse, emotional abuse, and you're debating family values? Dad stood up, face purple with rage. Everyone out, party's over. No, I said firmly. This is my party. They can stay if they want to witness the truth. He lunged for my backpack. I stepped back, and Tyler stepped between us. Sir, I don't think you want to do that. You're making a mistake, Mom wailed from her chair. You'll be back in a week, begging for forgiveness. Maybe, I said. But that'll be my mistake to make. The room held its breath, waiting to see who would break first. I pulled the letter from my pocket, the one I'd written at 2 a.m. I wrote this for you to read later, but maybe everyone needs to hear it. Mom shook her head frantically, but I began reading. Dear Mom and Dad, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Not because I don't love you, but because I do. Love shouldn't feel like drowning. Protection shouldn't feel like prison. Mom's sobs grew louder. Dad stood frozen. You taught me to be careful, to plan, to save. I learned those lessons well. Maybe too well. I know you're afraid of the world because it hurt you, but you can't heal your wounds by inflicting new ones on me. Stop, Dad said quietly. Please. I continued, my voice steady. Mom, I know your parents abandoned you. Dad, I know your friend betrayed you. But I'm not them. I'm not leaving to hurt you. I'm leaving to live. The room was silent except for Mom's crying. I forgive you, I read, for the locked windows, the monitored calls, the stolen independence. I forgive you because I understand fear, but I won't inherit it. Aunt Sarah was crying now too. Mrs. Henderson dabbed her eyes. I hope someday you can forgive me too, for the deception, for the public goodbye, for choosing myself over your fears. Your daughter, not your prisoner, Penny. I folded the letter, placed it on the gift table between wrapped presents I'd never open. That's beautiful, honey, Mrs. Henderson said softly. That's betrayal, Dad countered, but his voice had lost its edge. Mom looked up at me, mascara streaking her cheeks. We just wanted to keep you safe. I know, I said gently, but safe isn't living. The first surprise came from Pastor Brown. Robert, Margaret, he said gently, perhaps God's plan for Penny is bigger than your fears. Mom gaped at him. You're supposed to support family unity. I support healthy families, he corrected. What I've witnessed here isn't healthy. Then Dad's colleague, Mr. Chen, actually Mr. Smith, spoke up. I've wondered for years why Penny never came to company picnics. Now I know. Robert, you've imprisoned your daughter. You don't understand, Dad protested. The world. I have 3 daughters, Mr. Smith interrupted. They've all traveled, worked, lived. Yes, they've been hurt. They've also thrived. That's life. Mrs. Henderson pulled out her phone. I've documented things over the years. Photos of Penny watching from windows while other kids played. The delivery logs showing she never left the house. The way you answered for her at every interaction. You spied on us? Mom gasped. I watched a girl grow up in captivity and said nothing for too long. That's my guilt to bear. Cousin Amy stood up. I'm posting this. People need to know this happens. Don't you dare, Dad threatened. Or what? You'll lock her up too? Amy was already typing. Aunt Sarah pulled out an envelope. Penny, I've been saving too, for when you were ready. She pressed it into my hands. $3,000. Use it well. Sarah, Mom cried, you're my sister. Which is why I'm helping your daughter escape the prison you built. More envelopes appeared. Mrs. Henderson, Tyler. Even Pastor Brown slipped me a card. My nephew runs a hostel in Paris. His number's inside. The rebellion was complete. My parents stood isolated in their own party, surrounded by people choosing freedom over fear. I stood at the door, backpack secured, surrounded by unexpected allies. Mom and Dad remained frozen in the center of their ruined party, pink balloons mocking the scene, the 3-tiered cake untouched. Last chance, Dad said, his voice hollow. Stay, and we'll forget this happened. That's the problem, Dad. You want to forget everything that doesn't fit your script. Mom made one final attempt, rushing forward. What about your things, your clothes, your books? Keep them. They were never mine anyway. You chose them all. She grabbed my hand, her grip desperate. Please, baby, please don't leave me. For a moment, I saw her not as my captor, but as the abandoned 7-year-old she'd never stopped being. Mom, I'm not leaving you. I'm leaving the prison. There's a difference. We won't support you, Dad said. Not 1 penny. I almost laughed at the irony. Dad, I've been supporting myself in secret for 10 years. I don't need your money. I need my freedom. Aunt Sarah stepped forward. They'll always have my support, Robert. The support you should be giving. Mrs. Henderson jingled her car keys. Ready, dear? I took one last look at the house I'd grown up in. Every corner held a memory, most of them involving locked doors and monitored moments. But there were good times too, before the fear consumed them completely. I'll email when I land, I offered. If you want to stay in touch, it'll be on my terms. Mom's legs gave out for real this time. Dad caught her, and for once, they looked their age, 2 terrified people who'd built their entire world around controlling mine. Goodbye, I said, and walked out the door. The airport overwhelmed me. After 25 years in a controlled environment, the chaos was intoxicating. People rushing everywhere, announcements in multiple languages, freedom in motion. Mrs. Henderson hugged me at the security checkpoint. I'm proud of you, honey. Should have helped sooner. You helped when it mattered, I assured her. Aunt Sarah handed me a new phone. Prepaid. Your parents can't track it. My number's already in there. Why? I asked. Why help me against your own sister? Because I watched Margaret turn from a scared little girl into a controlling woman. I watched her fear poison everything, and I refused to watch it destroy you too. Check-in was surreal. The agent smiled at me, a stranger who didn't know my history, didn't see me as fragile or broken, just another traveler. First time to Paris? She asked. First time anywhere, I admitted. How exciting. Window or aisle? A choice, my choice. Window, please. Security was nerve-wracking. I'd researched it online, but doing it was different. Shoes off, laptop out, arms up for the scanner. Each step felt like shedding another layer of my old life. Sitting at the gate, I turned on the phone Aunt Sarah gave me. 47 missed calls on my old phone, which I'd left turned off. I typed out a simple text to the new number Aunt Sarah had given my parents. I'm safe. I'm okay. I love you both. But I need to learn who I am without you defining me. Please respect that. Then I turned it off. For the first time in my life, I was unreachable, unmonitored, uncontrolled. The boarding announcement came in English and French. I stood, legs shaking but steady, and joined the line of travelers heading somewhere new. The airplane seat felt like a throne. My throne. I'd chosen it, paid for it, sat in it without asking permission. The simple act of buckling my own seatbelt without someone checking it felt revolutionary. Nervous? The woman beside me asked, noticing my death grip on the armrest. Terrified, I admitted. But in the best way, she smiled. First time flying? First time everything. As the plane pushed back from the gate, I watched my reflection in the window. 25 years old and finally beginning. The safety demonstration started. In case of emergency, secure your own oxygen mask before helping others. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd been suffocating for years, trying to breathe through my parents' fears. Takeoff pressed me back into my seat. Below, Connecticut shrank into miniature, my whole world becoming just a small patch of a vast country I'd never explored. Somewhere down there, my parents were probably calling relatives, spinning the story, playing victims. The woman beside me pulled out her book. So what brings you to Paris? Freedom, I said simply. She laughed. Bad breakup? Something like that. I thought about the birthday cake melting in the afternoon sun, the pink decorations drooping, the guests gossiping over untouched finger foods. By now, the story would be spreading through social media, through church, through Dad's workplace. The Irving's perfect daughter had turned out to be perfectly trapped. The seatbelt sign turned off. People started moving around, living their lives at 30,000 feet. I remained seated, overwhelmed by the realization that I could get up if I wanted, or stay seated. My choice. For the first time in 25 years, every single decision for the next 8 hours would be mine. Somewhere over the Atlantic, I finally let myself think about them, really think, beyond the anger and hurt. Mom's parents had divorced when she was 7. She'd told me the story countless times, how her mother dropped her at her father's with a suitcase, how her father brought her back the next week, back and forth, until neither wanted the responsibility. By 15, she was living with an aunt who barely noticed her existence. Dad had trusted his best friend with everything at 22, signed papers without reading them, lost his business, his savings, his faith in humanity. The friend disappeared to Florida with everything Dad had built. They'd found each other in a support group for betrayal survivors. Two broken people who promised to never let the world hurt them again. Then I came along, their chance to do it right, to create one person who'd never feel abandoned, betrayed, or alone. They'd succeeded too well. I'd never felt alone because I'd never been alone. Never felt betrayed because I'd never been trusted to make relationships. never felt abandoned because they'd never let me go. Their love had metastasized into control. Their protection had become a prison. Their fear had become my inheritance, one I was finally refusing to accept. I pulled out a napkin and wrote, "Things I'll do in Paris. 1. Get lost. 2. Eat alone in a restaurant. 3. Make a mistake. 4. Fix it myself. 5. Choose wrong. 6. Choose again. 7. Trust someone. 8. Maybe get hurt. 9. Survive it. 10. Live." The woman beside me glanced over. "Good list." 25 years in the making, I replied. I folded the napkin carefully. My first declaration of independence, written at cruising altitude, flying toward a future I couldn't predict or control. And that was perfectly fine. Charles de Gaulle. Airport was a beautiful chaos. Signs in French I couldn't read, announcements I couldn't understand, and not a single person telling me where to go or what to do. Paradise. Immigration was my first real test. The officer looked at my passport, then at me. "Purpose of visit?" "Tourism," I said, though it felt bigger than that. "And starting over." He smiled slightly, stamped my passport. "Bienvenue à Paris, mademoiselle." Welcome to Paris. Welcome to life. The baggage claim was overwhelming. I stood there, one backpack on my shoulder, watching families reunite and business travelers rush past. I had no one waiting, no one expecting me, no one watching. The freedom was dizzying. The taxi line stretched forever. I'd researched this online, but reality was different. When my turn came, the driver rattled off French. I showed him my phone with the hostel address. "English?" I asked hopefully. "Un peu," he said. "A little." The ride into Paris was a fever dream. Buildings older than my country, people living their lives in a language I didn't speak. The Eiffel Tower appearing suddenly between buildings like a promise kept. At the hostel, the receptionist spoke English with a thick accent. "First time in Paris?" "First time anywhere," I said, the phrase becoming my motto. "Ah, then you must be very brave or very foolish." "Maybe both." She handed me a key. "Room 304. You share with 3 others. Breakfast is included. The metro station is 2 blocks east. And mademoiselle? The best way to see Paris is to get lost." I climbed the narrow stairs, each step taking me further from who I'd been. Room 304 was small, basic, perfect. I set down my backpack and looked out the window at a city that didn't know my history. Freedom, I learned, came with a learning curve. The metro map looked like colorful spaghetti. I got on the wrong train 3 times my first day, ending up in neighborhoods I couldn't pronounce. But each mistake was mine to make, each correction mine to figure out. My roommates were a revelation. Emma from Australia, backpacking for a year. Yuki from Japan, studying French. Maria from Brazil, working illegally in a cafe. They treated me like any other traveler, not a fragile thing to be protected. "You've really never traveled before?" Emma asked, watching me struggle with the shared kitchen. My parents were protective. Shit, mine threw me out at 18 and said figure it out. She showed me how to use the hot plate. Both extremes suck, yeah? I burned my first meal, undercooked my second. By the third, I managed edible pasta. Maria laughed. "You'll survive, Americana." Finding work was easier than expected. My bookkeeping skills were universal, and remote work didn't care where I was physically located. Within a week, I had 3 clients and enough income to extend my stay. But the real victory was smaller. Walking to a cafe alone, ordering in broken French, sitting by the Seine with a book, no one knowing where I was. Each tiny freedom felt monumental. One evening I calculated. In 10 days, I'd made more independent decisions than in 25 years. Chosen 12 meals. Gotten lost 7 times. Had 4 conversations with strangers. Made 3 friends. Solved countless small problems without calling anyone for permission. My parents would be horrified. They'd see danger in every interaction, disaster in every choice. But all I saw was life, finally beginning. 2 weeks into my Paris life, I finally opened my email. 247 messages from Mom, 89 from Dad, 15 from Aunt Sarah, 1 from Mrs. Henderson. I started with Mrs. Henderson. Honey, your parents are a mess, but they're surviving. The whole town's talking. Some think you're brave, others think you're cruel. I think you're finally free. Stay strong. Aunt Sarah's were updates. They've started therapy. Your mom joined a support group. Your dad asked me if you're eating enough. They're starting to understand slowly. I couldn't face my parents' emails yet. Instead, I composed one of my own. Mom and Dad, I'm safe. I'm eating 3 meals a day, cooking them myself. Badly, but improving. I have a job, a place to live, and something I never had before. Peace. I don't hate you. I understand you were scared, but your fear became my cage, and I had to break free to breathe. I'm attaching a photo from the Eiffel Tower. That's me, smiling, alone, alive. Love, Penny. The response came within minutes. Mom, thank God you're okay. Please come home. We'll change. We'll give you space. Your room is exactly how you left it. That last line said everything. My room was exactly how I left it, waiting for their prisoner to return. Dad's email was shorter. Your mother cries every day. This is killing her. The guilt hit hard, but Maria, reading over my shoulder, said, That's manipulation, not love. I sent one more email. I need 6 months. No contact except emergencies. Please respect this boundary. Then I closed the laptop and went for a walk along the Seine, practicing the art of not feeling responsible for their fears. 6 months later, I sat in a Parisian cafe, video calling my parents for the first time. They looked older, smaller, like the house behind them had shrunk too. You look... Mom paused, searching for words. Different. Older. I look like myself, I corrected gently. Are you coming home? Dad asked, though his voice held less demand than before. I am home. Paris is home now. I have a job, an apartment, friends. I even have a boyfriend. Pierre, he teaches English. I watched them flinch at each revelation of my independent life. We've been in therapy, Mom admitted. Dr. Mills says we confused love with control. That's a good start, I said. Your Aunt Sarah visits, Dad added. She shows us your Instagram posts. You look happy. I am happy, and scared sometimes, and lost sometimes, but it's all mine to feel. Mom started crying. We just wanted to protect you. I know, but you can't protect someone from life itself. Will you visit? She asked. For Christmas? I thought about it. Maybe, but I'd stay in a hotel, and I'd have my return ticket. Those are my boundaries. They nodded, accepting terms they once would have found unthinkable. I love you both, I said, meaning it. But I love myself too, and that person needs to live her own life, make her own mistakes, find her own way. We're learning, Dad said quietly. Slowly, but we're learning. After we hung up, I walked to my favorite spot by the Seine. The city lights reflected on the water, and I thought about cages. How they're often built with love, locked with fear, and can only be opened from the inside. I was finally, truly free. Freedom isn't free. It costs courage, planning, and sometimes relationships. But living authentically is worth every sacrifice. If my story inspired you to examine your own boundaries, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Share this with someone who needs to hear that escape is possible. Comment below. What boundaries do you wish you'd set sooner? Remember, it's never too late to choose yourself. Thank you for listening to my journey.